Hello and welcome to the Lund University International Podcast, the podcast all about living and studying at Lund University in Sweden. Hear from current students, alumni, researchers, professors, and many more special guests as we dive into life at one of Sweden and Europe's top universities. My name is Tim Parker, and I am an International Communications Officer at the Division of Communication. Lund isn't just a university city, it's one of Sweden's most innovative cities, known for its high standard of living, vibrant culture, and strong sustainability focus. For many international students, the dream is not only to study here, but to build a career and to stay. In this episode of the Lund University International Podcast, we're exploring what it takes to find a job in Lund after graduation. Our guests are two alumni who studied an international degree program and successfully started their careers locally. One now works at Circle Centre Lund, an organization focused on sustainability, and the other is a student coordinator at Lund City. They'll share their experiences, challenges, and practical advice for making the leap from student life to professional life in Lund. If you're curious about starting your career in one of Sweden's most dynamic cities, stay tuned. This conversation is packed with insights and inspiration. So welcome, Ronja and Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where are you from and what did you study?
So I am from Finland originally, and I have studied in Lund 5 years. I first did a bachelor's in development studies, and in June I graduated from the master's program in human ecology.
I'm Laura, I'm from Colombia, and then I came to Lund to study the LUMES program, which is called Environmental Studies and Sustainability Science. And I have been here for 3 years and a half already.
Fantastic to have both of you with us today. Could you please tell us about the job you have now and what that role involves?
Yes. I recently started a new job at Lund City, or the municipality of Lund. And my role is to act as a way in to the town for students. So kind of as a communication channel for students to get in touch with relevant stakeholders in the city of Lund. And I work directly with different student organizations, with the nations and with the student unions. And the core goal is really to make Lund a better city for students, not just to make sure that students feel well at the university, but that the town as well is designed and for students and works well for everyone. Because it's very important that we're not just students of the university, we're also citizens of Lund. And so those are the core topics that I work with.
Amazing. Yes, I work at Circle Centre, which is an NGO that is located here in Lund. We have a library of things, so it's just items that are commonly used by students or by people that are like not staying here in Lund for too long, and then you can rent them for like a very low price instead of buying new things. So it's related with circular economy. And then my role as a project manager is focusing in ensuring that the organization runs smoothly, and then the volunteers can enjoy what they do. We got funding from Lund Commune, actually, to strengthen the sharing economy model that the organization has. And a big part of my job is to make sure that the structures are there to support the volunteers and the board. So I work on things like funding opportunities, coordinating volunteers, and making sure that the long-term stability of the organization is working. Yes.
How did your studies prepare you for the job you have today?
Well, I have a background in environmental engineering. So I think like in the sustainability field, my perspective was more technical on how to approach things. And then my master's was more from the social science perspective. So now, for example, working at Circle Centre, which is a great example, is how to see, for example, how social sustainability is so linked to try to make sure that things are happening actually in sustainability. So promoting circular economy sounds amazing in theory, for example, but then there are many variables that have to be taken into account to do it. And I think like my master programs gave me that perspective that now I'm using at Circle Centre.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. And it's also very funny because we both me and Laura studied sustainability, but different programs and with maybe a bit of a different perspective on sustainability. And I would say that also for me, my job now is very relevant to things I have studied, but also in terms of sustainability, but maybe more social sustainability. And my program focused a lot on how can we drive grassroots change and change in systems, but rooted in a local level. And a big topic there that we discussed a lot in my master's program was democracy and how can we build societies where everyone feels heard and have a say in how society is built. And for me now, working with bringing forward the opinions and ideas of students into the city, I feel like those questions are still very relevant in everything I do. And I think for me, my favorite part of this job is that I also get to co-lead the Sustainability Week in Lund as part of being a student coordinator. And that is super exciting for me because that's something I've worked with also as part of my studies, and it's very directly related to things I did in class. So I think there's many ways it had prepared me, but also a thing that's kind of like outside of the theoretical aspects of my program. I think the people I have met in my past 5 years, the connections I've made, things I've learned from my classmates have really built the kind of character and personality that helps me do my job in a more inclusive way today. So it's also not just within the classroom, but also what happens outside.
I think that's so true because now you made me realize that our programs are very international. So it's also learning in the academic setting how to work together and how to understand each other's perspective, that then when you go to work, then it's valuable to have this approach for things. Yeah,
exactly.
That's good.
A question that I'm sure many of our listeners are wondering. Do you speak Swedish? And was language a challenge when you were looking for a job?
I guess I can start. I am lucky enough to come from a part in Finland where we speak Swedish. So Swedish was already one of my mother tongues when I moved to Sweden. And that, of course, has helped me in some of my previous jobs and activities I've done in Lund, but it's definitely not a barrier. However, there are jobs that will require some level of Swedish, but the amazing thing in the municipality and in the city generally with jobs is that people are quite open to you also learning a bit in the job. At least has been my experience with my colleagues, but I'm sure Laura can speak more about that since...
Yeah, I don't speak Swedish. I would say that my level is very basic. So when I was looking for jobs, I would only focusing on the ones that require English. I feel like since I only spoke Spanish and a little bit of English before, when I moved here, I struggled a little bit to feel comfortable thinking and writing academic papers and then communicating myself in English, that learning Swedish was not a fun thing that I kind of enjoy at the beginning of my master. But now that I'm done with that, then I feel like, okay, I can do, and I can take classes or learn on my own. Because I think one of the trickiest part here in Lund, as you said, everyone is so open to speaking English that being in an international setting, sometimes it's a little bit challenging to learn or practice Swedish because you actually kind of don't need it to even go to a grocery or buy stuff. Yeah, it's very easy to move with English. So it's tricky if you want to learn Swedish. But there are a lot of language cafes that the municipality organizes or an organization. So it's a good way of getting into or meeting people that are living here in Lund for a longer time that are not related with the university and are happy to practice with you and just to put yourself out there to practice. Yeah.
I think it's very funny you mentioned this, how people usually switch to English, because even I, who have Swedish as a mother tongue, since I have an accent of someone who's from Finland, people sometimes switch to English when I speak Swedish to them because they think I have learned Swedish. So even I speak it as a mother tongue. I think people are very proud in Lund to speak English and they are very happy to use it. So finding places where you kind of have to use Swedish or telling people that, hey, let's try to do this in Swedish is always a good way to practice, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you balance your studies with networking and job searching?
Well, now that you mentioned earlier the Sustainability Week, I was going to say that while I was studying, there are a lot of events happening like related with sustainability in general in Lund. So what I used to do was like check what events were happening and going there to speak with people that were already working on it, or like learning just some things that like to understand what was happening outside the academia world. And that is something easy in theory that you can do while you're studying. There are also job organizations that help you with the job search and like kind of explaining you how the Swedish job market works, because it could be different from what we used to, for example, comparing Sweden with Colombia. And then I think I focus more on like joining those organizations and going to those events after I finish my master, that I had like more time and more like a clear mind to do it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I think for me, during my studies, it was so important to be active in other things than just my studies. It was like a way for me to like practice the things that I was learning. And I felt like my life outside of the studies always went to some extent hand in hand with my studies. And I think that's going to look different for everyone. We all have different capacities. Some people might have a more demanding program, or they might need to put more time on their studies. But my big advice to everyone would be to find at least one thing that you can engage with that is not your studies, partly to give your brain a break to do something a bit different, but also to get yourself into the society out there, outside of the university and outside of your studies. And that can be a student organization, or that can be a part-time job or volunteering. I think any form of activity where you meet other people and you get to do something different is really, really useful. And for me, that also meant working in a lot of sustainability organizations. And fun fact was that I was also active in Circle Centre, where Laura is now working. And I not only did I meet a lot of my friends there, but I also learned so much about, like, it's one thing to read about sustainability, and it's another thing to actually act and do things with it. And I think that's such an important aspect, both for my mental health, but also for making my studies more efficient.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, the word networking felt like so heavy when I start to hear like, oh, if you network, that will maybe help you to find a job later. But I think like your advice of like finding something that you enjoy doing, I think networking doesn't always have to be in a professional setting. Like even if you join a sports club, you will meet people there that might like lead you to something in the future. So yeah,
absolutely.
That's great. Yeah,
most important thing is to find something that you like.
Yeah,
and that's going to look different for everyone. And talking of this, I think it's really funny that you, Laura, actually are now working in the organization that you first volunteered with. So maybe you want to speak a bit about that as well?
Yeah, because I feel like I followed the advice that you just gave. Like I started my master's in August of 2022, and by January of 2023, I heard about Circle Centre. Then I joined in one of the volunteer roles that they had as an officer, and I stayed there for a while, like not knowing that it will lead for the role that I have now. But yeah, I feel like, yes, doing something that you enjoy is how you network. And then, yeah, we have also met amazing people that we're still in touch with today. So that's something super helpful. Yeah.
And I think even if the actual place where you volunteer doesn't lead to a job, it's still going to be a great way to show like a future workplace that I have been active, I have done stuff, I have experience, and it doesn't need to be a paid job. Like when I make my CVs and apply for jobs, I put all my volunteering tasks and I still count them as professional experience, because being a volunteer in an organization or managing the budget or helping with the other volunteers, that's still real professional experience. And I think we need to be more brave to call it what it is. And that has definitely played into the job I have today. And they asked a lot about my previous experiences in these kind of organizations. And once again, as you mentioned earlier, it can even be a sports club. Like it's really like any kind of activity is a valuable activity.
Yeah. And I have heard also that, for example, for non-EU people like me, it's a little bit challenging to find a job because we don't have experience in Europe. So for some organizations, that is very important. And I feel like the volunteering is a good way, as you said, to say like, well, actually I have worked in an international setting and I know how the the work-life balance here works, and I'm familiar with how things work. So that might be good for your CV also in the future.
How did you first hear about the job you have now?
Well, me at Circle Centre, it was just by coincidence. It was like all the planets align because, I heard one of my friends is still part of Circle Centre, and it was just a coincidence that Ronja was leaving. And then I heard that they were looking for someone to help the organization. And then I was also open to work. So yeah, I think that's how networking works for me. Yes, kind of. But I don't know how it was for you. Yeah.
I think we're both really living by example what we have just spoken about, because for me it was also a contact, someone I had met while volunteering, who sent me the job role and said, this sounds like you, Ronja, you should apply.
Which is true. It's like the role as you described is totally you. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm also really enjoying it. But it was really fun because I don't think I would have found it myself. Like it was posted on I wasn't still job hunting very seriously, so I wasn't checking that frequently, new jobs. But then this friend sent this to me and was like, this sounds like something for you. And I applied and here we are. So this was also really thanks to a contact I had made here that then led me onto this path.
Yeah, again, networking.
Yes, networking is really key.
Yes. Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like if you're an active student and you really get involved with volunteer opportunities and different aspects of student life, that could increase your chances of finding an opportunity near the end of your studies, right?
Yes, but I would also say that I think there's not a clear path. So like everyone could do the same thing and it will lead to a different result depending what your interests are, depending the field that you're working on. Because now going back, for example, to the Swedish question, for us, maybe it's not a requirement to speak Swedish, but I know that other professions require to speak Swedish if you want to work. So like, I think it's just a mix of things that can work for you. But yeah, again, if you volunteer in something that you actually enjoy, you're not doing it with the purpose of this will lead me for a job in the future, but you just like enjoy your time here while you're studying. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways. But like, I think the key is also to, when you just do the things you like, there tends to come up some kind of opportunities. But also, as you said, not always. Like it's going to look different for everyone. And I think it's also very important to point out that every field is looking a bit different right now. Like there are some fields where I have friends who might be struggling more than others to find a job right now. And it's probably going to change by the time that people are starting to study now, graduate in a few years. Like it's constantly changing. And it's very important to not take it as a personal failure if you struggle to find something, because as Laura said, there are so many things at play. And even if you have the exact same experience as another person, like one tiny thing could lead to another and you're in different positions, and it's not up to us as individuals.
Yeah, that's so the thing that you just mentioned, I think it's so true, because during the job search, at least for my experience, it was this roller coaster that I was like, okay, I have a degree in sustainability, which is like a super high topic that is in trend. Why I don't get a job? Is it because I don't speak Swedish? Is it because I'm Colombian? Is it because of my profession, etc., etc.? So I feel like not taking things personal, like it's so important when you're doing this, because you might have an amazing profile, but it's just like how things work out. Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge in transitioning from student life to working life in Lund?
For me, definitely. I mean, I had a few part-time jobs next to my studies throughout my studies because I needed that economically to be able to study. But now that I've moved to an 8.5 hours at the office every day kind of job, it's definitely a transition to not have so much free time. I think, of course, I probably spent the same amount of time on studying and other activities before, but it was always done in a certain social setting that is the university, right? And you kind of had your friends with you all the time. And my personal life was so deeply ingrained with my study life that I don't know, it was a very different way of being. And now I of course have wonderful colleagues even at my new job, but I didn't I feel like I grew up in my studies, right? I kind of shaped who I am as a person. And now it's like I'm entering this new arena where things just look very different. So I think for me, like a very important thing has been to set some routines for meeting my friends, doing things that I enjoy outside of my job, making time for my hobbies, but also giving myself some slack, realizing I won't be able to do as much as I did before. I am more tired. Like there is more of my time taken to other things and not expect to be able to do the same things I did before, but also not feeling like I have to abandon everything I love.
That's true. I think for me, the experience was a little bit the opposite because I was working before coming here. So being a student again was challenging in terms of like going back to a classroom and like doing assignments. And also, I think here the summer holidays are long for my context, like the Colombian context, having 3 months to enjoy the summer. I was like, I don't know what to do with so much free time. So I was kind of eager to go back to the working life. But I think what you said is also so important that I feel like during the studies, we learn so many much skills. And I don't know, for me also being international here is like to get to know a different part of myself. That then is like, okay, I'm ready to put in practice at like a new working setting outside of my country. So, yeah.
And it's so interesting also to hear that kind of transition from work to studying.
Yeah.
That's also...
Yeah. And I also feel like, because one of the things that I noticed when I came here is that it's common for some people to finish their bachelor's program and then go directly to a master's program. But at least in Colombia, after you finish your bachelor's, you take some time to work and then to figure out what you're interested in, and then you can decide what like path to take. But yeah, I took a long time before going back to studying. So I think that was a good way of like then coming here and like meeting these young people, and then the nations and like the student life that you really feel it if you're living in Lund. So that was very good.
What advice would you give to international students who want to stay and work in Lund or Sweden, perhaps?
Well, I think besides being active in whatever way suits you, is also maybe to try to do things outside of the university bubble. Because I think a reality is that when you move to Lund, a lot of life happens at the university. Your friends are going to be at the university. Maybe your free time hobbies and activities also fall under the university, but there sometimes tends to be this like little barrier between students and the rest of Lund. And try to maybe find a way to connect to people who are not students, who are not part of the university, not just as a way to think about future jobs, but also as a way to get to know a bit about the country, how things work here, the culture, perhaps even language. But that could be anything from, I don't know, going to a language cafe or joining there's a lot of like senior knitting cafes, and they are very happy to have young people come. So if you're into knitting, that's a great idea. But any kind of activity where you meet maybe people outside of your usual bubble. And it requires a bit of bravery. Like it's not easy to go into a setting because it's very comfortable to go into like student settings because we're all students. But it takes a bit of going outside of your comfort zone to do things outside of that. But you can talk to your Swedish friends when you come here, or even reach out to me at the city of Lund, and I'm happy to help. But finding things, that are maybe not related to your studies or the uni.
Yeah, and I feel like that's good because once the master programs ends, most of the classmates that you have had will move back home, or they will move to a different city. So if you do other things that are not related with the university, it's easier for you like to feel settled and to have a routine. And yes, as you said, that's good. I think like my advice is to say be patient, because as we talked about before, there's not like a right or wrong way to do things. So just be great, like have some grace for yourself, and then try to do things that you like and have fun, and also take advantage of the resources that the city has. I joined International Citizen Hub Lund and Social Hub Lund also. and they have a lot of events. They do a lot of activities for like to help newcomers that are just arriving to Lund and they don't know what to do while they find a new job. So I feel like that's super helpful too during that path.
I think maybe just as a way to summarize what we have said is really finding activities you like that fit your personal life, and you shouldn't have to feel like you should do everything, just one thing that you truly enjoy, and also being patient, as Laura said. And not being too hard on yourself. There are so many factors that are completely out of our reach, and don't feel like you are a failure just because it doesn't work out for you. Now is an especially difficult time in some fields to find a job, and those are things that are way out of our control, and we shouldn't let them affect how we perceive ourselves.
That's so true. Yes. And I think the last thing is like this networking thing that I feel like if you want to stay here, you are gonna hear a lot, or at least I have heard a lot about it. It's just, it requires time and dedication to get to know people. So the best way to do it is by doing something that you enjoy and don't be stressed about. Yeah. Lund is an amazing city to come to study and live and enjoy. So there's so many things that you can do while you're studying here. And then if you decide to stay, there are other activities that the city provides you to enjoy. Yeah.
Thank you both so much for today, and congratulations on starting your career in Lund.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Lund University International Podcast. If you're interested in learning more about Lund University, you can go to our website, lunduniversity.lu.se. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and X. And you can connect with our amazing student ambassadors on Unibuddy. Don't forget to subscribe, and we look forward to bringing you a new episode very soon.